Florida's beaches are iconic symbols of summer, family vacations, and tourism. However, the recent closure of several key areas, from Port Everglades to Palm Beach, due to the appearance of thick black tar balls, has caused alarm and confusion. Lifeguards evacuated swimmers, and the Coast Guard initiated aerial scans, transforming what began as an environmental concern into a federal investigation. With officials still uncertain about the source of this pollution, worries are rising about what else may be lurking offshore. In this video, we'll examine the reasons behind the beach closures following this unsettling underwater discovery. A sudden and sticky shock. When tar balls began washing up along the beaches of Broward County on a quiet February weekend, many beachgoers didn't know what to make of them. Small, dark, and oddly textured, these mysterious globs at first seemed like they could be marine debris, clumps of seaweed, or even remnants of dead marine animals. But once the distinctive smell of petroleum became noticeable and people started finding the substance stuck to their feet and clothes, alarm quickly spread. The closures began near Fort Lauderdale and soon extended north toward Palm Beach. Coast Guard officials, working with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, issued swift advisories and began coordinating cleanup and investigation efforts. Flights and patrols were launched to try and trace the source of the pollution, but no definitive answers were found. The event was particularly unusual due to the time of year. Winter currents and wind patterns typically make it less likely for offshore pollutants to wash up on Florida's Atlantic coast. While some visitors were bewildered, others were outright disturbed by the scene. One man described initially thinking the tar was some sort of Dead Sea creature. Fort Lauderdale resident Seth Platt recalled walking along the shore at sunrise and stepping onto something he assumed was a rock. Only later, when trying to clean the black residue off his foot, did he realize it was oil. His children, part of a school cleanup crew, ended up with the substance all over their feet, despite his warnings. City officials and lifeguards closed the beaches out of an abundance of caution, citing the need to assess environmental risks and public safety. By Sunday afternoon, cleanup crews had managed to clear much of the material, allowing beaches to reopen, but not without lingering questions. If the tar balls were the result of natural ocean seepage, why were they appearing in such large quantities and so suddenly? And if they were from a man-made spill, why hadn't the source been identified? This lack of clarity has left many environmental experts concerned. While minor tarball appearances are not unheard of, the scale and spread seen in this incident point to a potentially significant pollution event. It raises broader concerns about marine traffic safety, offshore drilling infrastructure, and environmental monitoring systems that may not be adequately catching leaks until they make landfall. Where did the tar come from? Identifying the origin of marine tar balls is notoriously difficult. According to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, these blobs can originate from several sources: offshore drilling, ship discharges, or natural petroleum seeps on the ocean floor. Once released into the water, crude oil can undergo a weathering process. As it interacts with sun, salt, and waves, it becomes denser, clumping into sticky residues that can float for days or weeks before reaching shorelines. However, what made this incident unusual wasn't just the presence of tar, it was the volume and suddenness of its appearance. Typically, if tar balls are seen at all, they appear sporadically and in small amounts. Environmental officials admitted this level of pollution was not typical for this time of year, especially given the ocean currents, which usually push material away from the Florida coast during winter months. Speculation about the source of the tar focused heavily on offshore tankers and freighters. Fort Lauderdale Mayor Dean Trentalis was among those suggesting that a vessel operating nearby might have illegally discharged oil-laden bilge water. This practice, while strictly regulated, has long been a concern among environmentalists. Ships may attempt to circumvent regulations by dumping waste far from port, assuming currents will disperse the material harmlessly. But ocean currents are fickle, and in this case the plan, if that was indeed the cause, backfired. The Coast Guard's use of surveillance aircraft and patrol boats indicated the seriousness of the investigation, but they've yet to identify any ship or platform responsible. That in itself raises additional problems. If a spill of this magnitude could occur without detection, what does that suggest about other, less visible environmental breaches? There is also a question of mechanical failure or structural damage from oil rigs or pipelines in the Atlantic. Offshore infrastructure, particularly older equipment, is vulnerable to corrosion, cracks, and leaks. A minor rupture in an undersea pipeline could theoretically release oil slowly over time, allowing tar to form and drift toward land. But such events are typically caught by pressure monitoring systems and would have triggered alerts in pipeline surveillance networks. Finally, there's the least likely, but still scientifically plausible explanation: natural seepage. In rare cases, crude oil seeps from the ocean floor due to geological pressure. While this does happen in the Gulf of Mexico and other oil-rich regions, it's seldom seen off Florida's east coast in quantities sufficient to close beaches. Still, without a confirmed source, authorities cannot rule it out entirely. Environmental and economic impact. The temporary shutdown of beaches in one of the most tourist-heavy states in the country carries more than just environmental consequences. It also affects the local economy. South Florida's hospitality industry is heavily dependent on beachgoers. Even short-term closures can impact restaurants, hotels, and retail shops that rely on weekend foot traffic from beach tourists. Beyond the dollars and cents, the incident also cast a spotlight on the vulnerability of Florida's coastal ecosystems. Tar balls may not always pose an immediate human health risk in small quantities, but for marine wildlife, even limited exposure can be disastrous. Sea turtles, birds, and fish can ingest the substance or become trapped in it. The tar can also smother seagrass beds and coral reefs, two essential components of South Florida's aquatic life chain. Cleanup efforts were bolstered by community volunteers who rallied to remove the visible tar from shorelines. While heartening, this raises another issue: the reliance on local action in events that require national attention. Without rapid federal response and thorough monitoring, beach towns can find themselves ill-equipped to manage sudden pollution crises. Moreover, the incident revealed gaps in communication between agencies. While the Coast Guard and the Department of Environmental Protection coordinated their efforts, delays in information and vague public statements caused confusion. Visitors weren't always clear on whether it was safe to return to the beach or enter the water, and some cleanup workers were left without protective equipment or guidelines on handling the sticky material. In the long term, repeated incidents like this could lead to greater scrutiny of marine activity along Florida's coast. That might include tighter monitoring of ships, more frequent underwater inspections of offshore platforms, or even legal challenges demanding better environmental safeguards. For now, though, the focus remains on understanding what exactly happened and how to keep it from happening again. Tarball science, what are they really? From a scientific perspective, tar balls are the final evolutionary stage of crude oil released into the ocean. When oil is exposed to water, sunlight, and wave action, it undergoes a complex weathering process. Initially, the lighter components evaporate, leaving behind a thick, sticky residue. Over time, that residue emulsifies and hardens into rubbery chunks, what we recognize as tar balls. Depending on the composition of the original oil and the environmental conditions, tar balls can vary in size, density, and toxicity. Some remain buoyant, floating on the surface and drifting with ocean currents. Others sink, becoming hidden hazards on the ocean floor. When these materials make contact with sand, they adhere stubbornly, often requiring chemical solvents or specialized equipment to remove. The chemical makeup of tar balls can offer clues about their origin. Through a process called fingerprinting, scientists analyze the molecular composition of the oil residue and compare it to known oil types from different drilling operations, shipping routes, or natural seeps. This method has been used in past oil spill investigations, such as the Deepwater Horizon disaster, to trace pollutants back to specific rigs or vessels. Despite their unattractive appearance, tar balls aren't always immediately harmful to humans. Touching them may result in sticky skin or clothing, but health officials say that short-term contact generally doesn't pose a serious health risk unless someone has allergies or prolonged exposure. That said, Swimmers and beachgoers are always advised to avoid contact and report sightings to local authorities. In marine ecosystems, however, the damage can be more severe. Juvenile sea creatures, particularly filter feeders like oysters and mussels, can absorb toxins from degraded oil, disrupting their development and reproductive cycles. Birds that land in tar-contaminated waters may lose the waterproofing on their feathers, leading to hypothermia. Even after the visible tar is gone, microscopic hydrocarbons can linger in the sand and water, subtly impacting the food chain for months or even years. A pattern worth noticing. Although the recent Florida event was sudden, it's not without precedent. Over the past 2 decades, the U.S. has seen several cases of mystery tarball appearances. Each time, they trigger brief environmental alerts and local cleanups, but rarely lead to long-term reforms or policy changes. The question becomes, are these isolated incidents or signs of a recurring problem? Part of the difficulty lies in monitoring the vast and dynamic marine environment, with thousands of ships, dozens of oil rigs, and complex oceanic systems in motion at any given time. Pinpointing the origin of a small release of oil is a logistical challenge. Unlike major oil spills that leave behind satellite-visible slicks, tarball incidents are often discovered only after they reach the shore, by which point their source may be long gone. There's also a tendency to view these incidents as one-offs rather than parts of a larger trend. But marine biologists warn that increasing global shipping traffic, aging offshore infrastructure, and inconsistent international regulations create a perfect storm for continued small-scale pollution events. While none may reach the catastrophic scale of events like Exxon Valdez or Deepwater Horizon, the cumulative effect could be just as damaging. That's why some experts argue for a new approach to marine environmental protection, one that incorporates real-time satellite tracking, AI-powered pollutant detection systems, and international cooperation on marine waste monitoring. Without these tools, the oceans remain a blind spot in the environmental safety net, and incidents like the one in Fort Lauderdale could keep happening. In the end, what washed up on Florida's beaches may have been just a few pounds of sticky tar, but it also brought to light a sprawling and deeply interconnected web of environmental, industrial, and scientific challenges that still lack easy solutions. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think the appearance of these tar balls is just an isolated freak occurrence, or is it a warning sign of something bigger happening beneath the surface? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.